Hello, I'm Robin Vincent and welcome to Molten Modular. Today we're looking at the ADDAC 104. It's a voltage controlled T-Networks 4-voice kind of drum module, which I've been trying to get my head around for a little bit of time now. Not my head around how it works, because it's wonderfully simple and awesomely useful in any kind of URX situation. It's just trying to understand exactly what it is. Is that important? No, probably not, but the gist of it is that ADDAC have taken the guts of old drum machines, or at least the circuit from old drum machines, and stuck it into this module here. I'll bring you in a moment so you can see it a bit closer. So what you essentially get is something like the congas or the toms from the 808 in a little module. 4 channels of it. And it sounds a bit like this. Yeah, kind of get a kick drum out there as well. I mean, it's not the same circuit as they used on the kick drum on the 808. There's some other magical stuff going on in that, but this is a simple, put together little bleepy, bloopy, ticky, tacky baby, little miracle wonder of a little percussion module. I've had such a great time with it. It fits in everything. I mean, this is kind of spoiling the review, really, in that it's fabulous. You know, okay, so you can move on to another video now, or stay with me and find out why I think it's so good. Because it's not just the blippy blip bits. There's a whole other stuff going on here as well, involving filters and crushing and distortion and weirdness. But suffice to say that I quite like it. Now, DivKid did a video of the ADDAC 103, which is extremely similar to this in that it's identical, except that it didn't have voltage control and so had a little bit more room for larger knobs. Whereas this one has got small weeny knobs, but it has now voltage control over the pitch, which brings in some additional interesting things, like this. Anyway, so the particular circuit inside is called the Twin T network, and it's that, as far as my sporadic research can work out, is the little circuit behind a lot of legendary drum machines. And you have 4 of them in the 104, and it's a remarkably inexpensive module and could be the sort of filling out bleepy rhythmic kind of stuff that you've been looking for all this time, because I have been trying to find this kind of percussion in my system. I mean, I've got like the Pico drums over here, and that's, you know, that's cool for 2 sounds, like a kick drum and a snare maybe, or a clap. I particularly tend to use it as a kick drum and a clap. I've also got the 2 HP hi-hat, which I don't exactly love, but find it useful in some places. I mean, it's fantastic to drop a hi-hat into a track every now and again and then bring it back out again. I think that has it does something rather awesome with that. And along with that, I've got a Bastl Kompas alter, which is a fantastically weird noise machine that if you modulate it enough and throw enough stuff at it, it ends up producing interesting things. But I have no clue as to what I'm trying to do with that. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. Whereas I got the 104 that ADDAC have sent to me very kindly to try out, and it just sits in there. And whatever you do, it sounds great. But also coupling it up with something like the Bastl Kompas, and it can just sit there and do its own thing. Or if you want a bit more control, then I've just got in this ratchet module from Stocky. It's an entire drum machine. It's a drum machine sequencer, drum sequencer thingy, and that's allowing me to program it just like I would an 808 or an RD8, which I've got over there. So you can do something a lot more intentional, which is what this is. I'm loving that. Are you? The liquidness of that is fantastic. So what I could do just very quickly is I could dial up a number, and I could stick in a few more of those. Easy, lovely, ain't it? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring you in, look at it a little bit closer, see what the heck it does and what sort of sounds that it makes, and then drop it into things. I mean, if you check out my live stream that I did the other day, I used it extensively, or it's sitting all the way through the whole hour that I did. So there's a lot of it in there, and I'll try to, put together some kind of patch to make it sound nice while we're at it. So here it is, the ADDAC 104. 4 channels of stuff, 4 channels of trigger in, individual outputs and control voltage inputs here to control the pitch knob. This is what's different from the 103, is that you now have modulation control, CV input, over the pitch knob with an attenuverter as well, in order to decide what on earth that's going to do. So let's run something into channel 1 just to see what it does on the scope and have a listen to it. As we turn the frequency knob, we're currently all the way down on low, so I go to the left, bring it to low frequencies. I don't know about you, but that sounds a lot like the Great Egg Race to me, if anybody else remembers that old chestnut. Okay, stick it into the mod position in the middle, which gives us this boosted resonance. There's definitely some form of kick in there. Then up to high frequencies, which is very much more ticky. Now ADDAC say that the first 2 channels up here are better at high frequencies and the bottom 2 are better at low frequencies. So let's try number 4 just to see if it's any different. So we're on low frequencies now. See, I think that's better. If I swap that for channel 1, set to about the same. Channel 4. There's definitely more low end, a beefier sound to channel 4 as opposed to channel 1. And supposedly 1 and 2 are the same, 3 and 4 are the same. So that's interesting. Yeah. Let's pop up into the higher. Yeah, they're definitely different, without a doubt. But with it being voltage controlled, you can now stick in some form of modulation, and with a twist of your attenuverter, or if you use something a little bit more random, you can add a suitable amount of variation to your sound. Starts to create that wonderful sort of mouth pop, very vocal, very throaty, very liquid as well. Let's direct this to channel 4, see the difference. Nice. Now that is more or less it. I mean, there's this middle section here which is a mix output, so rather than having to use individual outs like I've got here, I could use the mix out, which is what I've got going through the scope here. And that simplifies things a bit, so you don't have to worry about having 4 channels or something else spare to run it through, although then you kind of lose your ability to mix between the sources. So I tend to use all 4 outputs into my Tesseract Sliderman thing over here so that I can pan them slightly and have individual control over the level of each one. So up to now I've been using the ratchet here in order to program it. If I plug these back in, and the ratchet here gives me the ability to have 16 step patterns, well actually 64 step patterns, but 16 is enough for the minute that I can just tap in where I want them to go. And so then it would be good to add something else in. Now there's another side to this module, which is that if you poke audio in through the trigger, it actually starts ending up like some kind of weirdly distorted, crazy ass filter. So if we take channel 3, take the output from our bass line, take it out of this filter, stick it into this one. Isn't that rather lovely? So let's take something out of the div kit aux here, stick that into 3 and let that sweep the filter. Or take a random output from the Batumi. See, that then gives me an idea. Why don't I take the output of one of the drums and put that through as a filter into the next one. And how bad could it get if I then plug that into the next one? And then of course into the next one. And then let's put our modulation back in. Well, all sorts of stuff, obviously. So although the ratchet is lovely, and I've only just got hold of that and I plan to do a proper full review of it, let's have a look at another pairing which I think is simply sublime. And that's the Kompas probability navigator from Bastl. That generates 3 types of probabilistically Euclidean type weird strange rhythms and triggers and stuff. All it needs is a clock, and then it starts doing its thing. And these two together, it's just simply superb. Similarly, you can bring in a whole load of modulation from the DivKid Oct. And you can have them all move about relative to each other. So pump it up for a bit more liquid. Or then slow it down with just some gentle movement. And the cool thing about the Kompas being only 3 channels is that it leaves you 1 channel free back for your bass line again. So as a last test, I don't know, call it a test, it's the last bit of mucking about, let's see if it does sound similar to this. If I write the same pattern on the RD8, yeah, which is a good approximation of an 808, might have the same stuff inside. I have no clue. I'll try to write the same pattern on both and see whether I can get them to sound a bit like similar like. So what I'll do is I'll write in a bit of bass, a bit of conga, see if I can mirror that up on the ratchet. So that's the RD8, and with roughly the same pattern. Take the RD8 out. Well, I don't know. Is that useful? I don't know. It seems like, yeah, they're generating the same sort of sound, but you've got to, know what it is you're doing, perhaps. Or maybe it's not important. And maybe you just need to use the 104 for what it is. So the ADDAC 104 then. Endless possibilities of bleepiness. So what is it again? Oh, I don't know. It's this thing here, right? T-Networks, whatever the heck that means. Some kind of analog thing inside, making analog bleeps that you can do from low frequency booms to mids to highs, clicks and farts and stuff. You can voltage control it to make it sound as wet and gooey and mouthy as you like. It's fantastic. Experimental stuff. I mean, I've been basically putting in patterns. You don't have to do that. You can just put in random gates from all sorts of places. Just have it make a noise or a blip every now and again, and then move it about and do another blip. It's lovely. It's a perfect companion to something like the Kompas, to something like this ratchet that I've started playing with. It's great. I mean, you probably are going to want to feel you might want to put another kick in there from something else. You might want to add some hi-hat, something a bit more tss-y, because there's no noise, there's no snare, there's no snap involved in that. This is all about little bongos, little toms, maybe a kick drum. You can sort of pull that out. I think perhaps if you were to stick it through a bit of distortion, just that bottom end, that could really give it something more. Or to double up on a couple of channels so you can run in one through the resonant filter of the other. Sorts of thought starts to develop from it, but I can definitely see that this is just going to knock around in absolutely everything that I do. If I've got a spare bit of clock to send it, a spare trigger from somewhere, it's just going to be there. Blip, 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 blip. It's just superb. I've just stuck a little bit of delay on it as well. Oh, it's just lovely. Anyway, it's the ADDAC 104. It's only about €169 or something. It's not expensive for a 4-voice drum module. Not at all. I mean, usually, just to craft yourself one bleep out of some of a, like a kick drum from a bass drum module, you have an entire module devoted to that. And, and if that's your bag, if that's what you want to do, if you want to craft the perfect kick drum, then do that, or the perfect bongo. Fine. But in here, it's just there. It's just there. You pitch it about the place, you modulate it, you use it. It's there instantly available. 4 of them in the one module. How could you possibly not want that? I mean, you know, downsides perhaps, I mean, there's no mixing ability between the channels. You have to do that yourself, but you could stick a nice little mixer next to it. Something like this, for instance, the abstract data. I don't know what they call it. I don't care. The abstract data mixer, little mixer module, put that together. Or put it through something else. I mean, I can imagine just creating a little submix of it on this, having that next door, and then routing that to my main mixer. That would be super. Just a little drum module. Maybe if you've got like a 6-channel mixer, you could then add another kick or a snare or a hi-hat to that from some other place. Stick that in there as well. Yeah, very interesting. It's just great. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Didn't really know what it was when I received it. I just contacted ADDAC to say, hey, you're doing these really interesting 100 series modules. I'd like to get hold of one just to try out to see what they're about, because they're really great value. Not entirely sure what all of it means, because your descriptions on your website are pretty low key, pretty like pared back to almost bugger all anything at all. So I was really quite interested. So they sent me one, and I didn't really know which one they were going to send me, and it turned out to be this one. It's just fantastic. And somebody should say, right, that it's a fantastic module, because I don't think they talk themselves up anywhere near enough. And they tend to get a little bit hidden amongst their technicalness, because they're a very, you know, intelligent, technical sort of company that likes to talk about things in using proper engineering terms. And that's nice and that, but it's not always helpful to us idiots who are just trying to make and mess around with some lovely sounds. This ratchet thing is looking fun as well. It's a garden of burping frogs or something. It's a blobbing world of environmental sounds and just pouring out of itself. I don't know, I reckon it can do a kick. Yeah, I reckon it can. Anyway, there you go. I hope that's been useful. I hope my playing with it's been useful. Do check out my recent live stream, which has got this going all the way through it with a load of other stuff going on. And I also did a patch breakdown of that one as well to show you what it was actually doing within the entire patch. Yeah, so there you go, the ADDAC 104. So please, if you like this video, if this was helpful to you, then subscribe. Then you can hear more about the sort of things that I can do, or check out my other videos. I do stuff on modular, do stuff on synthesizers, on software, computers, all sorts of bits and pieces. And join me for my monthly news roundup that happens at the last week of every month, followed by a live stream chat after that. And if you're really into what you've heard and what's going on, then consider joining me on Patreon and throw me a couple of dollars so I can do more and more of this stuff. So coming soon after this, the Ratchet. Definitely have a look at that. Stereo delay, looking at that. The text mixer, the live forms. Loads and loads of stuff coming up on the modular side of things. So stay tuned for more lovely stuff. And in the meantime, go and make some tunes.